This year, OWASP celebrates its 25th anniversary, right? OWASP was created in year 2001. Well, I always tell people 25 years of people still not knowing how to fix security vulnerabilities, so being unaware. And I think if you look at even the latest OWASP top 10, it is mostly unchanged for the past 25 years. There are a few things which come and go, but overall, we still have the same vulnerabilities. And we're still trying to address the same problem of developer awareness of security.
Welcome to the Season 5 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host and AppSec enthusiast and growth and community manager at Escape. Today, I'm joined by Sam Stepanyan, an OWASP Global Board member and OWASP London chapter leader. Sam is an independent application security consultant and security architect with over 20 years of experience in the IT industry. Sam has worked for various financial services institutions in the City of London, specialising in AppSec consulting, secure software development lifecycle, developer training, source code reviews, and vulnerability management. In this episode, we explore why, despite OWASP being around for over 25 years, many developers are still unaware of it, and why shifting focus toward developer conferences might be key to spreading security knowledge more effectively. We also discuss the impact of AI on modern security practices, the growing role of automated penetration testing tools, and how even small changes, like adding the word secure to a web coding prompt, can help nudge developers toward more security-conscious decisions. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Sam's opinions. Dive right in. Sam, I'm super excited to have you on the Elephant and AppSec podcast in the new season. For sure, we've been chatting for some time about making it happen. And well, finally, it took place. Everyone was expecting, a lot of changes ahead, a lot of changes from 2026. Who knows what this year will bring? Like, I think you have more than 20 experience in AppSec, so it's definitely exciting time for you to be in to see how everything evolves. But I think, well, in general, AppSec is quite driven by community. You're also one of the OWASP London chapter leaders. And there are a lot of meetups around, security, secure software development. And actually, like yesterday, well, I'm based here in Netherlands. I went to one meetup. It was mainly actually for women who are developers, who want to become developers. And I gave it was like a whole meetup dedicated to secure software development. And I wanted to kind of give a talk there on business logic vulnerabilities for them. And there was someone like before me who was also like giving a talk on software supply chain. And she introduced OWASP, and you could see, in the audience that people did not really know what it is. Like some knew, some didn't. But I think you also, something that you mentioned actually in your board candidate application is that there is, a lack of that awareness among developers. And I think, what do you think in this, 2026, where everyone kind of still talks about aspirations? How do you think we could actually solve this?
That's right. Thank you very much for having me on this podcast, Alexandra. Finally, we meet. Obviously, we've been planning this for a long time. But as you say, this year is going to be interesting. And I'm very intrigued to hear about your experience when you went to a developer event and people didn't know about OWASP, right? So this year, OWASP celebrates its 25th anniversary, right? OWASP was created in year 2001, and this year we celebrate 25 years of OWASP. Well, I always tell people 25 years of people still not knowing how to fix security vulnerabilities, so being unaware. And, I think if you look at even the latest OWASP top 10, it is mostly unchanged for the past 25 years. There are a few things which come and go, but overall, we still have the same vulnerabilities. And we're still trying to address the same problem of developer awareness of security. And it is a very, very tough problem to crack, actually. And I think a lot relies on, of course, awareness, education, and of course, a lot of it is in the culture as well. Because if you work for an organization as a developer which does have a strong security culture, you will have a basically better chances of writing secure code. And of course, being aware of things like OWASP top 10 is quite important. And I will tell you about my own personal experience. So what OWASP is trying to do, obviously, I'm not only OWASP London chapter leader, but also elected to be on OWASP Global Board. And OWASP Global Board decided that we need to focus more on developer conferences, because traditionally OWASP would go to a lot of security conferences. So we would go to places like Black Hat, DEF CON, and RSA. And what we would discover is that people who attend these conferences, they still don't know what OWASP is, which is absolutely mind-boggling. They are chief information security officers, right? Never heard of OWASP. It's like, what do you guys do? Some people will say, oh, this is some sort of top 10 things, right? Obviously, a lot of people who attend DEF CON are actually students who are trying to break into cybersecurity. And again, for them, because they learn about things like vulnerabilities and CVEs and Kali Linux and security tools. But again, the root of all problems is why applications are vulnerable is because the developers didn't know how to code securely in the first place. So again, this is why we're trying to shift our focus. So from last year, we started being present a lot at developer conferences, and I did my duty. I went to a NDC conference here in London last year, and to my shock and horror, right, there's lots of people, thousands of developers, and we had our OWASP booth with OWASP logo, right, and we spoke to 100 people because I can log them all. Out of this 100 people, I think 91 had no idea what OWASP was.
Oh, okay.
Never heard of OWASP. And some people would approach us and say, your company has a very clever logo. It's a letter O with a wasp in it. What do you guys do? And I'm like, right, okay. We are a non-profit teaching everyone in the world about security, providing everyone with free standards, guidelines, documentation, tools, lots of videos on YouTube. That's who we are. And I usually ask the questions. I would name me which vulnerabilities you know about, dear developer. And what they usually respond with is, oh, I know SQL injection. And that's it. That's all that 90 out of 100 people that we spoke with knew. There were some people who knew about OWASP, and there were some people who actually done training and were doing penetration testing. But again, 90%. And it was, I think, a very... I think it's not good that 25 years on, right, with all these breaches, right, if we look at what was happening 25 years ago, there were still a lot of breaches and lots of credit card theft related breaches. I think this is one of the reasons actually that OWASP became so well known is because payment card industry released a data security standard known as PCI DSS, where they actually mandated that anyone who is taking credit card numbers online, they must either install a web application firewall in front of the application, or they need to do a secure code review focusing on at least OWASP top 10 as a bare minimum. And I remember back in 2005, when I was a developer, looking at the PCI DSS and saying, what the hell is this OWASP thing? And this is how I actually discovered it. Started looking at top 10, and then later on, I was Googling for the keyword OWASP, and I discovered that there is an OWASP London chapter, and there's a whole bunch of people as community which meets. I attended to the summer events, fell in love with the idea, with the community, with people there. And yeah, that's kind of my journey, how I ended up there, and then became a chapter leader in 2015.
Yeah, I think I was actually more lucky yesterday than you with the 90% not knowing what OWASP is. And
it was shocking for me.
Yeah. A skill injection. I asked the question, like, how many of you know about business logic vulnerabilities? And I think it was like, I would say 50% of the audience. I mean, in all honesty, it was secure software development theme for the girls' codes. You presume people kind of know a bit more about security than on average, but I would say, 50% that knew about more than SQL injection, actually business logic vulnerability. And then we kind of covered some of them as well. But indeed, the awareness is something that we need to develop. And actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that OWASP is going to be more present in development conferences, because afterwards, after the meetup, someone in the audience came to me and said, yeah, you should actually apply for the security talk for the Java conference, which is, developers.
That's exactly what we're doing, Alexandra. And actually what I started doing, I've started going to a lot of developer meetups, right? So yes, there was a Google developer meetups. I'll go to JavaScript developer meetups in London, to Python developer meetups. And I do talk to people. and actually do what I call a guerrilla marketing, because I turn up in my OWASP t-shirt and people say, oh, I remember seeing this somewhere. What do you guys do? And I'm like, okay, it's a icebreaker. And speaking of the developer conferences and developer meetups, is what we're trying to do is we're trying to send ambassadors. So we're trying to send people who will present talks which will be relevant to developers. And I will tell you from my own personal experience of working with developers and educating them in security, one of the techniques is to use lunch and learns, right? This is what I would do. And I've discovered that when I do lunch and learn called Anatomy of a Hack, I get lots of developer participation. Everyone wants to hear how hackers hack into their app. And this is where you could actually have a very good kind of breach between penetration testing, application security testing, and developers, because developers, they're not malicious, right? They don't write software with security vulnerabilities. The problem is that they have different goals, right? That is actually the problem. And developers are rewarded for shipping features, for shipping new features to customers. Developers are not rewarded for reducing risk, but they want their software to be more secure if they knew how to do it, right? And this is where what we're trying to shift from the cultural perspective as well. So it's not just awareness, but also building partnership, so building allies. And one way of doing it is to security champions. I know we spoke with OWASP colleague Marissa, who is our number one person in security champions, because she literally wrote the playbook. And, the problem that we have is it's very difficult to change the hearts and minds of developers overnight and saying, hey, from tomorrow morning, you are suddenly a security developer. No. So it is an ongoing process. And obviously, I mentioned things like reaching out at conferences and meetups. One other thing that we're doing, and this is how we're trying to attract more developers to join OWASP as well, is gamifying, right? I think everyone likes to play games. Developers are also gamers.
Quite often, yes.
If you play games with them, that does work. And obviously, one of the games that I play during lunch and learn is Cornucopia. So for those of you who don't know, it's a card game, and obviously it exists in the physical card format, and it also exists in online format, and it's a threat modeling card game. So basically, each card describes a scenario, what can possibly go wrong. Yeah, it's absolutely fun. So I encourage all the listeners to go and Google for OWASP Cornucopia and check it out.
It's something I've heard about Cornucopia, because something that we also discussed with one of the previous guests. I think what is going to be great to see, at least I hope to see, this year, that with the tools like Lovable and other vibe coding apps, it's actually going to be also easy to build a lot of games like this online to learn security. And I hope there will be maybe a marketplace of the security games that you can build, and something that's actually fun to gamify, for developers as well. I just hope that we'll also see that kind of. Actually, it's very funny, because when we released our vulnerable application, which was like Rubber Duck Store, the person who won the challenge that we ran was actually front-end developer. She was based in Romania, but it was great to see that it's actually not a security person that was the most motivated to do the whole write-up, but a developer. So who knows?
Exactly. And another thing is to do the secure coding tournaments that we run at OWASP London as well. Capture the flag tournaments as well. All these things, they motivate, of course, developers. And again, if there's something that they win when you gamify it, that's the whole purpose, right? That keeps them motivated. And there are a few other ways that you can basically improve the situation. I'm pretty sure, and I know you spoke about this with some of my colleagues as well. But yeah, I think if we kind of rewind and look again at the past 25 years, I would say the situation is improving gradually. But again, it's not as rapid as we would want it to be, because everyone in the world keeps getting excited about new technology. Obviously, AI at the moment is the latest hype. Everyone's doing it. And we need to keep reminding the industry and saying, you need to remember to do it securely, right? Because everyone is excited. Oh, we can do vibe coding. Look, this LLM writes code for me. It's like, it's like, did you know how it learned to code? Because the training data for that model was everything on Stack Overflow, which includes a lot of really bad and vulnerable code. Yes, it works, but it introduces vulnerability. And again, with LLMs, you have either training done on bad code, which was just scraped on the internet, but let's not forget more adversarial scenarios where models can actually be poisoned, and vulnerable code and incorrect things can be actually planted by people with malicious minds.
And do you think it's something that also maybe could be interesting for OWASP to collaborate on, with the providers like Anthropic, on Claude or OpenAI? Because in a nutshell, like if people are using the interface, the model within where they work, if there is a security related pop-up, careful, this might introduce this or that, it's something that could be useful for someone also to learn, or again, gamify that experience.
Of course. And we are indeed working with AI vendors.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, OWASP has Gen AI project. So again, I urge everyone to go and Google OWASP Gen AI project, where we have top 10 vulnerabilities in LLM, and recently released at actually a very big AI security summit in London.
Mm-hmm.
Which happened during Black Hat Europe last December, the new top 10 for agentic AI applications. So it's something that I think everyone who is doing anything with AI, particularly agentic AI, must read and understand the problems and also suggested mitigations. And my most favorite in OWASP top 10 for agentic AI is number 10, which is rogue agents. I spoke to people from Google yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, we've seen this. It's like, how do you make sure that your agent doesn't go berserk and start deleting all the folders, formatting hard drives, and deleting databases? We've seen quite a lot of these cases. Like, oh yeah, we know about all this, so we're trying to introduce sandboxing, and there are ways, of course, of addressing. But previously, nobody cared. It's like, oh, we have an agent.
Yeah, well,
right now
with
with
the whole community of agents that you can that communicate.
But again, a reminder to your listeners that OWASP is at the forefront of AI security, and may I remind all the listeners that AI is also a software application. AI is not some ephemeral brain somewhere. It is still a software application which you download and install. You can run it on your computer, or you can connect to cloud-based models such as the ones provided by OpenAI, like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, but you can have them locally. At the end of the day, this is still a software application, and it has security vulnerabilities just like any software application. And finally, a lot of vulnerabilities are very common between AI applications and other software applications, but there are some very specific things specific to AI and LLMs which don't occur in your regular code. And again, that's why it's important to understand and go and address these things. And OWASP Gen AI project is perfect because they've covered a lot of ground when they created their guidelines. So it's not just blind top 10. Another very interesting thing, which is kind of not for AppSec related, but it's AI related, they released a very good guidance on how to deal with deepfakes. Because as you know, at the moment, one of the problems with AI is that there are some people from North Korea using AI, passing interviews, applying for remote jobs, and or using AI to pretend to be your CEO, and then calling is like, oh, can you please transfer $100 million to this account because I'm stuck somewhere and we owe this money. And with a voice clone and an identical video clone, it actually happened. As it even duped some of the Pentagon generals, I believe. Yeah, OWASP even has a document and guidelines on how to deal with deepfakes. So go and check it out.
Yeah, I think on my side, that's one of the worries that I have, that with so much content online, video content, it's very easy to create a deepfake. And on your side, you've also, you have talked about the OWASP Gen AI project, but you've also contributed to so many, OWASP projects over the years, and you're leading OWASP Net Attacker, right? Net Attacker.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, an automated pen testing tool. And I think pen testing in general, I think the past year, it was also quite hyped topic, and you can even see, I think I went on GitHub on your on the project account, and I could see Stargaze immediately when there was a big hype just before the Black Hat, a lot of people adding it, starting it. What's your overall opinion about AI pen testing tools or agentic pen testing tools?
Yes, obviously, I'm one of the project leaders at OWASP Attacker, which is a network attacker, right? So it is not an application attacker, but a network attacker. So a lot of people's like, Sam, what are you doing? Because you are an application defender. Why are you leading a project called Network Attacker? And so the answer is because I absolutely fell in love with it, because I adopted this project. I didn't start it originally. It was started by some other people. And one of the reasons why it has so many stars, Alexandra, is actually, and why they keep going up as well, right? I will explain the reasons. The reason number one is that NetHacker, along with few other OWASP projects, participates in something called Google Summer of Code. So Google Summer of Code, for those listeners who don't know, it's an initiative by Google where they reward students, university students, who pick an open source organization. OWASP is one of them, and they spend their summer months, 3 months, but they can technically spend longer time. So it's like small, medium, large projects working on open source project of their choice. They have to apply, they have to submit an application, like write an essay, what they're planning to do, and describe how they're going to improve this project. And then they work under the mentorship of mentors from the, let's say, the open source steward organizations such as OWASP, but it could be Python, it could be Linux, and lots of non-profit foundations which are stewards of open source applications participate in Google Summer of Code. But obviously what is great is that Google then pays the students at the end once they pass the assessment.
Okay.
So this is why you see this spike. So there's another spike because at the moment there is a new Google Summer of Code for 2026. So I can see the number of stars on Attacker growing because people say, oh, this is something written in Python. And it is a penetration testing security scanner. Yes, I want to be part of it. So that's one of the reasons. And another reason why it goes up before Black Hats, because I've been presenting an Attacker at Black Hats since 2018. Every time when we do a demo, obviously the interest grows. Because yes, it is an automation penetration testing tool for scanning networks for open ports, services, servers, but also trying to fingerprint applications on it, and also trying to find vulnerabilities. And most importantly, one of the things that it can do, since you mentioned some of the business logic vulnerabilities as well, it can do some brute forcing, and it can do brute forcing for default credentials. And actually, use an attacker wants to brute force a network of a financial services organization just based in London.
Us to do that?
Yes, obviously, as a pen testing engagement, security engagement, and what they were looking for, they said, oh, we have lots of security cameras all over the world, and we need to find out, because different companies and so, we need to find out how many of these cameras still have the default credentials where username is admin and a password is admin. And this is what I use the attacker to do, basically. I said, okay, I just give me all the IP ranges. I scanned thousands of IP addresses and identify those cameras, and they had quite a few. There weren't that many, but there are quite a few cameras which still had admin. So, which is quite scary again, but this is one of the use cases. Automated pen testing, I think nowadays that everything accelerates so quickly, I think is very important, because not as kind of your main thing. So we say that we need to distinguish between penetration testing, which is done by experts, by humans, and by experts who've been properly trained and hopefully also certified. But because of the scale of modern applications and the way how it moves, usually pen testing is time boxed, it's time limited. And this is what the problem is, because humans can only do that much in 5 days' time. They, of course, use automated tools before, and think the automation is very, very important. But obviously the thing that what we're doing with an attacker is something which a lot of people call continuous penetration testing as a service or things like that. But basically, the idea is you can take a tool, and again, NetHacker is a free and open source project, by the way, just like all OWASP projects, including all our top 10s, all our guidelines and documentation. Everything is free and open source. So, which is very important to remind people that we are a non-profit and an educational charity. So everything that we produce, all the materials and resources, everything is free and open source. So for example, let's speak about NetHacker. You can take this free and open source project and you can stick it in your pipeline, and you can have it scan your either one application, or you can scan the whole network and the second some developer spins up something in the cloud, AWS, Azure, Google, or wherever, right, that you didn't know about, which has lots of open ports, which has vulnerabilities. You have a free tool which can say, oh, because it's continuously scanning, and as frequently as you want to set, every day, every night, every hour, every week, and say, well, something's changed. Hey, look, there's a new open port appearing there, right? While you would want to have a proper penetration test done at, intervals that usually organization or their regulation dictates, at least annually. But in my opinion, that's too long to wait for vulnerability discovery. But I totally support the idea that you should be scanning and pen testing yourself constantly. And this is why I like the name of the tool, which is an attacker. It's like attack yourself before real attackers do, right? Attack your network before the real attackers do. I think this is why it's quite important to have such a tool, and also to be aware, because there are a lot of large organizations don't really know what they have, don't know what's their attack surface. They don't know which services and applications are internet facing, if they have expired SSL certificate, open ports, CVEs somewhere, especially for global organizations which have lots of offices all around the world. I think it's very difficult to gain that visibility, but this is what we're trying to address with a tool. But yeah, and I think the continuous pen testing tool, which scans the network, I think is very important thing to have in your arsenal compared with the focused penetration testing of your business application.
Yeah, I think network and the web applications, it's indeed something different, because do you think if someone would contribute, let's say on attacker, to add actually the application layer, would it be something interesting for you?
We do have some application layer vulnerabilities, but obviously, as I usually say, there are tools which do web application scanning, like dust scanners, right? And again, these are, Zap and Burp Suite are probably one of the most popular tools which kind of do this kind of thing, right? But there are lots of others, but usually they're focused on one application, on one URL. And what these tools are trying to do, they are under your root URL, your company.com. They try to discover and map all the folders, or the paths, all the pages, all the form fields, all your search boxes, or your buttons, or your drop downs. And that's where they're trying to attack, right? Because they're focused on one website. So while obviously what we have with an attacker is called a mass scanner, so it scans the whole network. So it is a wider but shallower scan, but I definitely would welcome any improvement work to bring more application scanning to an attacker. And because it's a modular framework, we already have some application scanning, including a lot of web applications, a lot of CVEs related to lots of web applications as well. More than welcome to contribute. Everything's open source, and all OWASP projects and contributions are always welcome. And again, if you're a student, don't forget that you can apply to Google Summer of Code and get paid at the end of your 3 summer months, where instead of doing whatever you're doing, actually helping to save the world and participate in the open source development.
Yeah, I'll put the link afterwards in the description to the Google Summer Code camp. I think it could be definitely very useful. There are student listeners, and over the conference there were some students, so that could be definitely interesting.
And a lot of other OWASP projects participate as well. So, for example, we have OWASP BLT, OWASP Nest, and JewShop. Since you mentioned that your company produced an intentionally vulnerable application, OWASP has its own very famous intentionally vulnerable application called JewShop. And I think every single penetration testing and web application firewall company, they kind of use it as a benchmark, and they usually say, well, this is how many vulnerabilities we can find in OWASP JewShop. So
yeah, it's definitely used.
It is also participating.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, good learning resource when you get started, especially when you want to break down the applications. And its benchmark, as you mentioned, they are also being used. I think when it comes to test versus pen testing, I agree that the logic is kind of similar, that more test is being focused on, I would say, single step scenarios, while pen testing is a kind of, at least on our side, it's rather like multi-step attack chains that are combined together. But I'm actually curious, because quite often when it comes to pen testing, what we also talked about it now, it's more about discovery, let's say how important discovery of them, that they exist, and then how can we exploit them. But I feel like at least I feel like a lot of the
pen testing tools, if we come back, to the start of our discussion, actually, like this developer awareness, this developer education, what they're focused quite often is actually on that security exploit penetration testing part, but the part where you actually help to remediate something, then explain it to developer how and prove it that it was like show concrete steps, how it was exploitable, show like the screenshots. Okay, here there was a problem. Here's the piece of code, how to fix that, and make sure it's not repeatable also afterwards. I feel like that's something missing, and for me, I think that's important link overall to maybe bridge. I don't know what's your opinion there. Why do you think there is a reason?
It is very, very important, and I don't know if you've seen some of the memes about AppSec and DevSecOps, where, we're just shoving vulnerabilities over the fence. Yes. There's, all that rainbow unicorns and shoveling all these issues. So I think you covered a very important thing. So penetration tests on any vulnerability scanning, if it is just being thrown over the fence to developers, they will not understand what the problem is. Especially this is true for pen testing, because pen testing comes as at best they will get a report which will say, oh, there is a SQL injection or cross-site scripting at this URL. For developers, they will not even understand the vulnerability, and they will not even know how to find the lines of code in the application which are responsible for this. I think this is where it's our responsibility as application security people, is to make sure that this education is there and developers understand it. And also, we shouldn't throw issues at them. We should process them. I think this is the role of application security team, to actually explain and educate developers on what is actually going on and why the issue that they're seeing is a security issue. And also, I think since we were talking about AI previously, one of the best uses of AI that I found is not to use agents to write your code, or not to use agents to hack your applications, but to use AI to explain findings, to explain vulnerabilities to developers and to other stakeholders. This is the beauty of LLM. You can go and say, explain this problem like I'm a 5-year-old, explain this problem like I'm a software developer who never heard of security, or explain this problem to a board member, a C-level executive who is non-technical, because the language matters, right? Because we all speak different languages and we all live in different worlds. And this is where I find AI and LLMs particularly useful. It's the report writing and explanation.
Yeah, I think for sure that's a super important part. I mean, bias there, since that's what we also kind of do that part at Escape, but more for developer side. I think for executive skills, it's more about reporting, and they're very happy with the report that they can prove for the compliance part. I think for developers, it's something that's for sure valuable, especially if you can immediately plug it as explanation. AI-generated explanation into the Jira ticket, and that they don't even have to then connect to the platform, and they can basically just read it and implement it. Or even within the IDE, if you connect MCP server to their, Visual Studio Cloud, anything wherever they work, Windsurf, then it's much more powerful event. At least what I think, there you can actually also see the real difference that you make. So in this new season of the podcast, like in the previous season, I also asked very specific questions, at the end of the session. That's a bit controversial. What do you think, in 2026, in this new year, will be the buzzword that will drive the most attention?
Very interesting, because obviously last year it was agentic, right?
Yeah.
And I think it started like in March last year, right? So even at the beginning, no one was even talking, everyone just talking about AIs. I really hope, right, as a security professional, that people will actually start focusing on securing AI. There are so many problems related to AI and adversarial AI. I really hope that this year will finally be the year where people start paying attention and will realize that you need to do things safely and securely. Of course, wishful thinking, hopefully, but I really hope we can achieve that. And again, urge everyone who is engaged with AI, do check out all the OWASP resources produced for Gen AI security.
Yeah, so maybe 2026 security. AI security.
I hope so. We're celebrating 25 years of OWASP, and this year I hope we can finally make an enough noise for people to start noticing that you need security, because without security, you will have all sorts of problems.
For sure. A lot of problems for organizations. So we'll hope then 2026 will solve, well, we will not solve all the problems, but at least the most access control, maybe. Let's
We're
see.
talking about awareness, right? Okay, be aware, be prepared, know where to look, right? And as a very basic thing, we should always recommend people who are talking to chatbots like ChatGPT and other AIs, whenever, for example, developers write something, it's like, don't forget to add the word secure, right? If you add it, AI will know what to produce. And I always show them an example that if you ask AI to produce a piece of code, first time it gives you a very vulnerable example with lots of vulnerabilities. But if you ask it to make it secure in your prompt and say, don't forget to make it secure, it will actually, the output will be much better.
I think that's very good advice, actually, and very simple step to do.
It's very simple. And again, a lot of people will say, oh, it cannot be that easy. I was like, it is actually that easy. Whenever you ask AI to write a code, you store in the word security. And now, obviously, everyone is using things like skills, right? There's a skill-driven development. And I always encourage everyone to add to their skills, to the context engineering, prompt engineering, a request to, if you are using LLMs, ask them to produce secure code. They will see the difference straight away. I've seen situations where AI was hard coding tokens and secrets and passwords.
Yeah,
the first time you ask, I say, well, just copy paste your password there. I'm like, okay, you need to improve this, improve security. And when I challenge it, I said, why didn't you give me a secure example first time? It's like, well, you didn't ask me. I was like, okay, now I'm learning as a human, and thank you, AI, for teaching me that we need to ask AI to produce things securely. It's, again, a very simple prompt engineering hack. Add the word secure to your prompt and see the difference.
Maybe a new OWASP project, create a prompt library for developers how to build securely.
We are already working on this. There's a wonderful talk by Jim Manico, who is our superstar in secure coding training. Again, you can just go to YouTube and look for Jim Manico's talk on secure prompting that he presented, and there is a library available as well.
Okay, well, I'll look it up. Yeah, I didn't know about it, so that's actually very interesting.
And it's specific to specific languages, by the way, because do things differently in Python, JavaScript, Java, .NET, right? That's why it requires different prompts. So yeah, this is one of the projects which we're building. But again, if you watch at the moment, it exists in the form of conference talks, presentations with some guidelines, but I believe it is being put together into a proper project. And the same team and Jim is working on something called AISV, so it's AI Security Verification Standard, which is, I think, a part of it. So basically, please do watch out for that. That is a brand new project which is currently being built.
Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing all the projects. I'll definitely need to find all the links for all of them to put in the description. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I'm looking forward to when this episode will go live.
And thank you very much for having me.